Welcome. Today we're joined by Vahram Ter-Matevosyan, an associate professor at the American University of Armenia. We'll be discussing the 2020 skirmishes as well as other topics. Vahram, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Emilio.
So Turkey has consistently sided with Azerbaijan in terms of confrontations with Armenia. But this time, the rhetoric from Ankara seems to be a little stronger. What's the difference between now and the 2018 skirmishes or even the 2016 April war?
Yes, if we try to see at these statements coming from Ankara, they may sound a little bit outlandish or a little bit strong, but in essence, it's a continuation of the statements, of the tone, and the approach that Ankara has projected over the last 30 years or so. Ankara has always said it with Baku, and this approach has its ups and downs, its zigzags. But overall, the approach has been consistent. So what has changed this time is we see a little bit more structured, a little bit more institutionalized approach towards the question. We see also some interesting glitches that exist between Ankara and Baku. So we have to also read sometimes between the lines of those statements that came out from Ankara, from different power corridors in Ankara. For instance, the things that we see in the statements, you can see that these statements are made by overly emphasizing the Azerbaijani approach, which may come as natural, but at the same time, some of the statements in the, some of the lines, some of the wording in the statements, you can see that these are presented by Azerbaijan without much fact-checking on the ground, and also doing some of the source-checking and triple-checking of the facts that are mentioned in the statements. So you get an impression from these statements that if you skip the first line of the statement, you get an impression that it's about Nagorno-Karabakh. The skirmishes are about Nagorno-Karabakh, but in essence it's about Tavush. It's talking about the territorial integration of Azerbaijan and all other kinds of usual rhetoric, but in essence, you can see that as Turkey unreservedly sided with Azerbaijan and trying to present the arguments that are quite well known.
Longtime Foreign Minister of Azerbaijan, Elmar Mammadiyarov, has been relieved of his position. Could you speak a bit about this current reshuffle going on in Azerbaijan?
Look, what happened in the last 2-3 days in Azerbaijan and the way Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, is acting is quite awkward and odd if you look at it from many perspectives. The Azerbaijani president that we used to know, or the way he was presented to the public, went through some changes, his image. We have a president, we see a president in Azerbaijan who is not confident, who speaks about 150 people only who are willing to volunteer to go to the forefront. We see sacking of Mammadiyarov, his close confidant, his close person that has been with him since 2004, and on top of it, we see the third problematic side of the statement that he is criticizing the MFA, Minister for Foreign Affairs, and Azerbaijani diplomats abroad as much as he could. This is quite surprising. The president who claims to have strong diplomacy, strong foreign service, all of a sudden decides to sack a long-time negotiator on the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, but also, of course, foreign minister. But Mammadiyarov is more than a minister. Mammadiyarov is an institutional memory of that foreign service. He also epitomizes the last 16 years of Azerbaijan's diplomacy and continuation of the negotiations. We see that with Mammadiyarov, Mammadiyarov also brought some stability to the foreign service. But then here comes Aliyev and says, okay, you know, I'm not happy with the job and the quality that you're doing, you must go. But having long-term ministers in Azerbaijan is not a new thing. So before him, in 2013, Safar Abiyev, the former Minister of Defense, was sacked. The minister who served in that position for 18 years And so we see that, and after that, after him came Zakir Hasanov, and he brought more, he changed the structure and the behavior of Azerbaijan's armed forces. So there have been a number of speculations yesterday that this new foreign minister is not a career diplomat, his past experience is not impressive, so he's going to be a puppet foreign minister. These are quite superficial analysis, because first of all, it's difficult to imagine that any foreign minister or any minister in Azerbaijan would be an independent player in the politics. But on the other hand, we see that this can also signal a completely new beginning in terms of reshuffling, internally reshuffling in the Azerbaijan's foreign ministry, that foreign service can go some fundamental changes, that it can also signal some changes that can come in the negotiations. So yes, it's a moment, perhaps of a pause in Azerbaijan's negotiation approaches, but that can as well can be interpreted as a way to re-evaluate some of the approaches, because by this reshuffling, Aliyev sent a strong message that he believed that his reshuffling, his sacking of Safar Abiyev in 2013 worked out. He now thinks that it's time to work with MFA and to do the same with MFA.
Some believe that the recent pro-war demonstrations, as well as the current skirmishes, are almost a ploy being used by the Aliyev government to detract or distract from a looming economic crisis. But others are saying that the idea of a coming crisis in Azerbaijan is overstated. What do you think?
Well, I think in addition to these two, there are also geopolitical concerns that we should consider. Yes, I agree. All of them had their share of role to play in the entire developments that we saw the other day, that we are seeing these days, and we saw over the past few days. But I think what happened in the streets of Baku and how it went almost out of control, it indicated deep currents, deep developments that go in that society that remain widely not visible for observers who sit and observe Azerbaijani politics outside of Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan remains a closely supervised society, and then yet you see people who chanting all kinds of slogans in the streets of Baku, and yet Aliyev condemns them somehow, saying, okay, where are you that only 150 people are volunteering to go to the forefront? This indicates deep tensions and clashes and also power structure in Azerbaijan, which is quite difficult, and perhaps sacking of Mamedov is just an early indication that some more changes are on their way in this country. If I may go back also to the question of the statements coming from Turkey. Look, the way the Turkish statements from Ankara can be categorized into a few categories. The first is that, so we have ministries, strong statements from Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, going beyond the established diplomatic rhetoric, making some statements which tell a lot about the mood of these people and the way they approach Armenia, but it also reflects a toxic atmosphere that Turkey has created over the past 150 years, and the approach that they have towards Armenia and Armenians overall are reflected yet once again in these statements. But the meeting yesterday between a Turkish defense minister and Azerbaijani deputy minister, deputy defense minister, was quite interesting. I think that that meeting and the presence of 4 branches of armed forces of Turkey indicated that Turkey can listen to the grievances of Azerbaijan, but at the same time, the visit of Deputy Defense Minister of Azerbaijan to Ankara indicated that well, there's something apparently wrong. In spite of having security alliance, in spite of having this 2010 security cooperation agreement, well, apparently things are not working very well. Ankara had to summon, so to say, the deputy minister of Azerbaijan to Ankara in order to listen what's really going on. If there was a real intention of Ankara to help Azerbaijan militarily, they should have, or Deputy Minister of Defense of Turkey should have flown to Baku to hear on spot on what's really going on. So apparently it was more a show of what we saw yesterday. And then we see Erdogan's statements, which were in line with his usual rhetoric that we're all used to. So there's, again, nothing new. So I guess we see here some, we do see that Aliyev didn't get this, other than Turkey, look around, I mean, other than Turkey, who extended its support, or perhaps rhetorically unconditional, but this cannot go more than war of words. That cannot go, Turkey cannot rely on using weapons in by any standards, by any means against Armenia.
The recent escalation was another test for the CSTO, which is a Russian-led military bloc, and Armenia is a member. However, it didn't outright rebuke Azerbaijan. At the same time, the Russian deputy foreign minister gave a veiled, indirect warning to Turkey to take a balanced approach. How do you assess this dichotomy of Russia on one hand warning Turkey and on the other hand not rebuking Azerbaijan?
Right. So the CSTO, and again, we are confronted with this, the behavior of this organization that doesn't have a ready answer again, yet again, for Armenian diplomacy. But I think it's also time to reflect on this organization, but also some of the mistakes that our foreign policy and defense, perhaps people who are in charge of defense policy should sit down and reflect some of the decisions and the way CSTO reacted to this. I think that some of the things that were done in the initial hours could have been communicated differently. Someone can interpret Armenia's willingness to have the CSTO a meeting immediately as a sign of seeking help, which is all right. I mean, it's also a protocol that Armenia has to inform the CSTO about the problems that Armenia has confronted. But at the same time, I guess we have to understand the CSTO needs strong reforms inside to increase the credibility towards that institution among its member states. CSTO is going, I would say, through an internal crisis. It's and this, what happened the other day, like 4 days ago, is yet another indication that things are not right in the CSTO. But also, one may also interpret this as an CSTO's, or let's say Moscow's, approach to the way Armenia handled the secretary of the CSTO question. So I guess what we saw in the CSTO is an accumulation of number of processes that were piled up together, and then we saw that one day we may need that strong statement from the CSTO, and then it's not coming or it's postponed. But Russia did play its role in the process. It sent a number of times signals that it's willing to reach truce in the skirmishes. It seems the current truce can be attributed also to their involvement, but it's yet to be confirmed by official sources. But I think overall we see a situation that Russia's role and also the military drills that has been going on as we speak, right? If I'm not mistaken, the timing is military drill Caucasus 2020. That came quite a surprise because before I was coming here, I was trying to find whether that was pre-planned drill, but I couldn't find any verification. But there was also another indication that things could have, Moscow could have sent this message to countries that, and also to a strong signal that this region remains within its own interest. So we have yet to understand where this drill is coming from, why now.
Well, related to that, Armenia has a military pact with Russia to maintain border security along the Turkish-Armenian border, and there are Russian border guards stationed there. Right. How safe is that borderline? And the fact that Turkey has been invading neighboring countries, namely Afrin, northeastern Syria, northwestern Syria, do you think that Armenia is threatened?
It wasn't safe in the 1990s. I have to say that in the 1990s there have been a number of incursions and infiltrations through this border. But after that, Russia has spent some time, tried to strengthen the security of the borders and the area, Armenia-Turkey and Armenia-Iranian part, so that Republic of Armenia can be certain that Russia is doing its job properly. Well, I guess it's difficult for non-military experts to evaluate the level of preparedness, but I believe there are not only facilities and also the overall infrastructure that is in place in the border between Turkey and Armenia has always they have historical roots, but also they're pretty strong nowadays, and there are no indications to think otherwise. When there are some crisis situation, the unit that is in charge for the border protection always put the soldiers on alert. So we do know that Russia has been consistent in its policy. How in these situations Russia is responding is difficult to say and to speculate, but I think whatever is Russia doing on the border, Russian border guards, is in line with also Armenian interests. They cannot go and undertake something that can be interpreted differently, and Armenian and Russian border guards work closely and cooperate closely on many border issues. And actually, for the last 3 years, there have been a number of the protocols of Armenians living on the borderline with Turkey have been released, and more Armenians can do the job, villagers can do the job that they were not allowed, or it was more difficult before to work on the land in that part of their villages.
Okay, thank you, Vahram.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.